Welcome to this week's Unseen. I'm Gina, and this is
I'm Zach. Because you don't know me.
I'm taking over his video today.
Mm-hmm.
But really, he just loves having me here and invited me back, so here I am.
Yes. Well, truly, I'll just be honest with you guys. Sometimes I don't know what to talk about. And so my wife is very...
If you guys have been following and watching all these videos, because we hear all the time, there is people watching the videos, please
there are
comment your questions, because that actually helps us know what to talk about. I'm saying us as if I'm just doing this with you.
You're a part of it now.
So please comment your questions. It's super helpful as we know what you guys want to know more about. So, but today we're going to be talking about
let me say a little more on that before we get into it. So a little more on what she was just saying about the questions. I know from experience, sometimes it can be hard to think of a question to ask. You might have a lot of thoughts on things, but you don't really have maybe a coherent question that you would want to put out there. So maybe you have a question, maybe you don't. An alternative to having what you might think is a good question to ask. Maybe you have little experiences or things that you think were an experience, whether you're sure if it was or not. If you saw something that was in the spirit. Good or bad, depending on what you were seeing. Maybe just sharing things like that. That would actually help, because many of you actually have had experiences where you've seen things, you've had visions, dreams, you've seen things literally, or heard stuff, or maybe seen things move or whatever, just things of the spirit. Or experience things in a service, maybe worship or church, and maybe you kind of have some thoughts on it, but you're not totally sure. So just sharing a little bit of that, and being bold and just putting that in the comments, because truly no one's going to judge you.
But even if you don't have a well thought out question, just asking if we could talk more about something, that's an easy way to let us know.
Yeah, because there are things we've talked about over the course of the Unseen videos that some people actually would like to know more about, but I just don't know. And to me, there are things that I just kind of understand because I've been doing this for a while and pressing into these things and learning stuff. So to me, something that seems totally normal, to some of you might seem totally strange and weird and you want to know more about it. But I don't know what those things are unless you tell me. So tell us. So that would just be helpful. We can keep doing these and we get ideas for stuff, but sometimes it'd just be nice to know, what should we go deeper in that we maybe have already touched on. So,
yes. So enough about that.
Yeah. Well, I don't normally talk that far into it, so that was helpful to me to maybe get that out there. All right. So what's today?
Well, so we were talking about just different experiences we've had in the Unseen, and he suggested that I share just some of the experiences early on as we were kind of being exposed to more of this. And
well, let me just tell you. So I started down this road first. I was first. Because I've always been interested in the weird stuff and all that. So I was first. I'm going to clarify. But I'm both glad and sometimes annoyed that even if I start down a road first or I'm more interested in stuff, my wife Gina you just get more. You just get more. If it's dreams, you definitely get more dreams.
Oh, stop.
I love the experiences I've had. I am not putting that down at all. The journey I've been on has been wonderful. Sometimes frustrating, of course, but I've loved the journey I've been on. But it'll be I start to see stuff and Gina's so what did you see in worship?
Kind of like how the first time I played Risk, I totally beat you.
Oh, I don't. You're never coming back up. But so if we're in worship and I'll be Gina will be so what did you see? And we'll talk about what we each saw in the spirit. And I'll be like, yeah, well, I think there was some stuff over here. And Gina's like, well, I saw. And it's like this whole like panoramic view of like heaven and glory and whatever creatures. And I'm just like, I saw an angel.
Well, so I think like when we initially started this, like, I don't even really, no, it wasn't an accident because I used to sit and on purpose like ask Holy Spirit what was going on in the room, and like I would do that on purpose. So there was things before things started like breaking open.
What do you mean by things breaking open?
I'm not even sure if it was like all at once or more like trickly, but like I would be in a service and where I wasn't previously like aware of anything going on, the more I started asking Holy Spirit to show me things, I started seeing a lot more things. And I don't know if it's important to clarify, but I will. When I see things, it's like in my mind's eye, like meaning my eyes are closed, but I'm seeing everything in the spirit. So, just to clarify.
We've talked about that. So.
Okay. So I am still looking forward to the time when I can see with my eyes open. But so I would be in worship, and I mean, the things I was seeing were like definitely otherworldly. Like there was no way to make sense of it in like the way we would think of things. I remember there was one time in worship and I saw like these like huge, like almost look like something from like the coral reef, and it was like on the stage, and it was like just so weird. And I remember like,
weren't they pillars?
Yeah, they were like pillars. And at the time, I didn't have the tools to really know what to do with it. I just was like, this is so bizarre. This is like beyond where I'm at right now. I don't know what to do with this. Sometimes I would ask like, what is that? And sometimes I would understand. Other times I wouldn't. But the one piece of advice that really helped was to honor where you're at and honor what you're seeing. And so there was a time, like, so I saw a bunch of things, maybe I can share a little bit more on that, but it suddenly like just stopped, and I was like, what? Like, I was really sad because it was really cool, but I don't know, this isn't like, this is exactly what happened, but I will say that I had stopped like honoring what I was seeing and stopped like taking note. And like now I'm much more like, if I'm seeing things, I'm taking note. I'm asking what that was. I'm, like, is there anything for me to do with this? So that was kind of like, it was like tons of things. Like there was this one time in church, and it was like a couple weeks in a row, like there was just a lot of things going on, like just crazy things that I was seeing. And this one moment I remember, from the back of the church auditorium, Jesus walked in, and he was huge, like so big. And it was crazy because I was like losing it, but then I was noticing like the room, and the room had shifted completely. And I was like a mess.
Was that when we were going wild? Was that one?
I don't remember. It was a while ago.
A couple years.
Yeah, it was a couple years ago. But that was crazy. And and Jesus was so big, he almost had, like Alice in Wonderland, how she kind of had to like stoop in the doorway. Like that's what he did. And that just like totally wrecked me, because all of the other things, like, although amazing, seeing Jesus, nothing really compares to that. So that was incredible. But a lot of times, like, I see things that they don't make sense to us, because like it talks about in the Bible how, who's that, Paul or Peter, who says like it was like this?
There's a lot of places. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's like after like hearing that, I was like, yeah, I totally get that, because there's times where I see things and it makes no sense. Like, should I share about the pelican one?
Well, yes, no.
Okay, so I saw this like dragon, and
which I think we've talked about dragons before, but if we haven't and you need to ask about it, just ask.
I saw this dragon and it was like a pale pink color, and then on its head was a pelican head. And like I
so
was
instead of like a normal dragon head, it was a pelican.
Right. I was like, what in the, like, I was almost like, was I like making that up? I was so confused. And anyways, ended up being this whole thing. Like I asked Holy Spirit, like if I could go back later to see it again. And I did. And ended up seeing like what was happening and like the ground the dragon was flying over and all this stuff. And it ended up being like super profound for me. That was a couple years ago, and it was about something that I carry, being a breaker. And I think it was a pelican. The pelican had a meaning. But anyways, it all like fit together. But at the time when I was seeing it, I was like, this is the most absurd thing. Like, it was this pale pink color, you know, not something that you would think of when you think of a dragon, and definitely not a pelican head. So, the unseen can be really weird, but exciting. And I think there's like two ways of looking at it. One, you can feel frustrated that you're not seeing more. And two, like you're seeing a lot of things, but you're not actually honoring what you're seeing. And so if you're feeling frustrated that you're not seeing more, honor what you are seeing now. Maybe like you're in your imagination and meeting God and, you know, just having fun with him. Like, those things are amazing. They're awesome. It's when we don't honor where we're at that we're not going to grow. We're not going to keep, like, why would he give us more when we're not honoring what we have now? So, yeah.
Which we've talked about, honor versus dishonor. It's the same thing, just across the board, really. And even with seeing, so we'll say seeing a lot because that's the main thing we pay attention to, but it really can cover every sense, if you want to say it that way. Like, so just what you're sensing, like what are you picking up, even if you're not seeing things, whether, you know, what you would say is physically seeing or seeing with your mind's eye. Or maybe you pick up smells. I know a lot of people, I have before, but I know a lot of people who that's like one of their easier ones that they pick up smells. Can you share a
story on that one?
I do. Just hold on. We'll get to that. Or you might hear things like a lot in worship service. I've heard many times people say about how they heard angels singing. That's pretty common, I think. Not common in a bad way, but like you hear that often enough. So like really just whatever it is, with whatever sense, your way of picking up things, the senses God gave us. We've probably talked about on this, but how even our physical senses have like a mirror in the spirit, like things in the spirit, it all connects with it. You know, we talked about body, soul, spirit. There's like a wholeness, a connection between one and the other. So honoring where you're at covers all of it. So, even if you think you're like that one person who never sees anything, is never aware of anything, you probably are. You're just not used to paying attention to those things you are picking up. You probably just brush them off as a nothing, you know. So paying attention to that stuff and asking Holy Spirit to help you pay attention. Because really everyone I've ever talked to, they might start off thinking like, yeah, I never really have those kind of things or those experiences or encounters. And then the more we start talking, they're like, oh, well, there was this one time. And then they end up sharing this like grand story of how they, you know, whatever, went on an adventure with Jesus. And it was like, well, that was very real. And then just based on what Gina mentioned earlier on, I don't want to pass this by. Like, we want to get better, improve at being more aware of all things in the spirit realm. And when she mentioned Jesus, like, the reality is, when we talk about it, depending on where you're at, it might sound like Jesus is like the generic one, like he's like, of course, everyone's going to see Jesus, but we want to see angels, we want to see this or that or whatever. But when you start experiencing things, the interesting thing is that even if he seems like he shows up as just a regular person, like there's nothing grand or majestic about his appearance, sometimes there is, but even if there's not, when he shows up, there's just something about Jesus that kind of takes over caring about seeing any of the other stuff. And it's not wrong to want to see the other stuff, but definitely Jesus, that's the primary thing that all of this is truly centered on. It's being more aware of him and his presence.
Yeah. Everything kind of points to him and reveals more of him.
We're going to talk about smelling.
Oh, I can't remember if I shared it here, but there was someone I met recently, and she was sharing how she can like smell different, like if she goes somewhere and there's like depression, like there's like a smell to it, or like she knows like when someone needs healing because there's a smell. And that was the first time that I've smelled like different things when we've been in worship, like I'll smell something, but that was the first time I actually heard of someone that like that's how the Lord like shows them things, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that's amazing. But it makes sense, because why wouldn't God use parts of us that he created to reveal more of himself?
And I mean, to go further down that road, like whatever way you find you normally operate in things, like maybe it is praying for people for healing, like a ministry like that, but to not box yourself in that it has to look a certain way, because like the lady who smells things, like, so that's like a way that she actually is sensitive to the spirit and receives that information and then can operate. So like whoever you may have learned from in whatever area, healing was just that example, like the way you operate, the way you pick up things, the way the Lord shows you stuff doesn't have to look like anyone else's way. And that's the wonderful uniqueness of all of us that he created. And we all have things that are easier for us. So I say that, and it's like sort of serious, like how sometimes I'm annoyed with how easy it is for her to pick up stuff and like see things. And there have been times where that's true. But at the same time, I do recognize that there are things that I'm good at, like that are my kind of thing. So everyone has their thing. We all have gifts and ways of easily operating in other areas. So it's not about, never do the comparison thing, because that also is not honoring you and where you're at. So if you want to grow, don't do that.
Yep. All right.
Was there anything else we want to talk about?
Mm-hmm.
Did you share all of the weird stories?
No, I didn't share them all. But...
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if I had any. I don't think I had any shit stories I wanted to share.
Remember to comment your questions, or if you want us to talk about more about something, or if you want to share your experiences, we'd love to hear it.
Yep. So keep practicing stuff if you're someone watching who is actually wanting to grow. We've talked about meditation. We've talked about the imagination, like the activating in that area, and connecting with the Lord that way. Just keep practicing that. And don't forget to ask questions to us. There's that. But also, like, if you are pressing in, you do want to see more things, ask the Holy Spirit questions. The best way to grow, of course, in community and being able to share stuff with each other, that is a huge way. But the main way is actually friendship with Holy Spirit, and that's conversation with him. So when you have questions about stuff, ask him, and he'll show you things, and actually trust that he will show you things.
Sure, you talked about the veil.
A while ago.
Oh. Well, if you didn't see the video, we talked about it. A good book to read is The Veil by Blake Healy. Shares his experiences with seeing in the spirit. That was absolutely necessary. Anyways, that's a great one to start with and kind of dive in to that place. But anyways, thank you guys for joining us.
We can do this first official thing. It's going to happen.
Okay, do it.
So The Veil's a great book, but also if you want, I've done this before. Beginning of the year I did it. The beginning of 2022 I did this. But we're going to be running another 6-week Journey to the Mystical Realm course. So last time I did it, I did mention it on here. For anyone that's interested, you can comment, you can message me. If you know me, you can just talk to me. But actually, the new thing, do you want to share it? You're doing it with me.
Oh, just say it.
Well, I didn't know if you want to share
Say
it.
it.
Okay. So the fun thing about this, because I loved doing it, it was so much fun. I had about 14 people, I think, 14, 15 people go through it the first time with me, and it was awesome.
And this next round, I will be doing it
right.
with you.
And this next time, the fun thing that will be different is Gina will be doing
Oh, is
it
that
with
what
me.
you were going to say?
Yes.
Oh.
That's what I wanted to announce. So we're doing it.
Sure,
We haven't picked an exact date yet. I'm thinking it'll probably start like end of February or maybe beginning of March. So it's not coming up just yet. We're still a few months out. But just to put it on your radar, if you're interested about it, let me know so that way I can get your name down. And when I do officially like set the dates for starting and ending, I can get that information to you. But it's an awesome time to get mentored in this, to actually be able to grow and have some, like we talk about stuff on these videos, the unseen.
It's very limited.
It's very limited what we can get into in this because this really is not the way to train and really to help grow. So we give you tips, but Journey to the Mystical Realm is excellent where there's videos to watch from Ian Carroll with wonderful instruction. And then the Zooms that we have, that's a personal Zoom with the group.
Yeah, it's super fun.
To ask questions, answer them, and like actually give assignments to help grow as a group in these things. So
yes, we might even do some activations on Zoom.
Oh yeah. So anyway, I guess that's it now. Now we're done.
Okay, thank you for joining us.
Bye.